A 1957 Cadillac once shot actual perfume into your face every time you hit the brakes. That's real. And somehow it's not even in the top 10 dumbest things Detroit sold you. One company put a working fireplace on a dashboard, logs and all, another strapped an inflatable swimming pool to a moving pickup truck. And one genius engineer thought rubber bands could stop a car crash. We've got an exploding ashtray, a TV bolted to the steering column that blinded drivers mid-turn, and a horn that played the national anthem instead of warning anyone about anything. And by number 35, you'll be convinced these people were sabotaging their own company on purpose. Hit subscribe now, because this list gets dumber every single number. 1. People assume lawnmowers are harmless machines, built only for cutting grass. That myth got destroyed the day one man decided his riding mower needed serious horsepower and welded a jet engine onto the back of it. The mower roared to life like a small aircraft preparing for takeoff, and neighbors thought a plane was landing in the cul-de-sac. He blasted across his lawn at 60 miles an hour, with zero brakes installed anywhere on the machine. Grass flew everywhere while he steered blindly through his own yard, screaming the whole way. He finally stopped by running out of space, proving speed was never the real problem here. 2. Everyone believes a tanning bed needs expensive UV bulbs and a salon price tag to work properly. One dad decided that idea was completely overrated and built his own version using sheets of tinfoil and an old space heater from the porch. He lined a wooden frame like he was wrapping a giant potato and climbed inside, expecting an instant golden glow. Instead, the heater overheated within minutes, and the tinfoil trapped every bit of that reflected heat inside the box. Smoke started pouring out of the garage as the whole contraption nearly caught fire around him. Firefighters found a grown man sprinting outside, wrapped head to toe in foil. 3. A man rigged a leaf blower to an office chair believing he had just invented a personal hovercraft. He strapped the blower underneath the seat, flipped it on, and expected to glide smoothly across his driveway like something out of a sci-fi movie. Instead, the chair shot forward with zero steering control and no brakes of any kind. He plowed straight through his own yard and launched off the edge of a small hill into the neighborhood pond. Kids on bikes stopped just to watch a grown man in an office chair sinking slowly into murky water. He climbed out, soaked, proving hovercraft dreams do not belong in office furniture. 4. Most people think a microwave is just for reheating leftovers and nothing more. One backyard mechanic disagreed and gutted an old microwave to build his own homemade Tesla coil for fun. He flipped the switch expecting a small, harmless spark show in his garage for the kids. Instead, massive arcs of electricity crackled through the air, and the entire block lost power within seconds. 3 houses went completely dark while his neighbors ran outside, wondering if lightning had struck their street. He stood there holding the switch, looking equal parts proud and terrified of what he had just built. Turns out microwaves hide more chaos than anyone ever expects. 5. Zip lines are usually built with steel cable and proper safety gear by trained professionals. One man skipped all of that and strung his own zip line from the garage rafters straight to a tall oak tree, using old bike chain as the cable. He figured metal was metal and climbed up ready to fly across the yard like a backyard superhero. The chain groaned and stretched the second his full weight hit it halfway across the line. Links snapped one by one, sending him crashing down into a pile of yard tools below. Neighbors came running, expecting an emergency, and instead found a man tangled in bike chain, laughing through the pain. 6. Everyone assumes an oil drum is only good for storing gasoline or scrap metal in the garage. One man saw it differently and turned an old oil drum into a homemade smoker for weekend barbecues. He fired it up, expecting a nice, slow, smoky flavor to fill his backyard for guests. Instead, thick black smoke rolled out and drifted straight down the entire block within minutes. Neighbors panicked, thinking a house was on fire, and someone quickly called the fire department. Trucks arrived, sirens blaring, only to find one man standing proudly next to a smoking drum full of ribs. His barbecue became the most talked about event on the street that year. 7. Skateboards were never designed to break the sound barrier, but one teenager was determined to change that. He welded actual rocket boosters onto his board, convinced he had just built the ultimate ride for his friends to see. The moment he ignited it, the board shot forward with terrifying speed across the driveway. He had zero time to react and zero ability to steer the sudden burst of power. Within seconds, he slammed directly into the side of a parked minivan down the street. Neighbors ran outside expecting a car accident and instead found a teenager sprawled on the pavement next to a smoking skateboard. Rocket science and driveway physics clearly do not mix well together. 8. Bungee jumping usually requires certified cords tested for extreme weight and tension standards. One man ignored all of that and built his own bungee cord using nothing but old bike inner tubes tied together. He climbed onto the garage roof, convinced his homemade cord could handle a real jump. The moment he leaped off, the tubes stretched dramatically before snapping apart in midair without warning. He dropped straight down, landing hard in the bushes below the roofline. Neighbors rushed over expecting the worst, and instead found him lying in leaves, laughing nervously at his own poor judgment. Turns out rubber tubing was never meant to replace real safety gear. 9. Home elevators are usually installed by professionals using proper motors and safety mechanisms. One dad decided he could skip all that and built his own version using a car jack and an old lawn chair. He climbed on, expecting a smooth ride up to the garage loft, like something from a fancy apartment building. Instead, the jack locked up halfway, leaving him stuck dangling between the two floors for hours. His family heard him yelling and assumed he was just calling them for dinner at first. Eventually, someone found him stuck, sitting awkwardly in a lawn chair suspended in midair for 6 long hours. His homemade elevator became the family's favorite story for years afterward. 10. Jet skis are built with specially designed propellers engineered for water performance and safety. One man decided a chainsaw blade could easily do the exact same job on his own homemade jet ski. He attached it, proudly convinced he had just built a budget-friendly water machine for summer fun. The moment he tested it in his driveway, the blade spun wildly out of control within seconds. It nearly caught his foot as he scrambled backward, trying to shut the whole thing down fast. Neighbors watched in shock as he hopped around the driveway, holding his shoe and his pride at the same time. That homemade jet ski never once touched actual water that entire summer. 11. Bug sprayers are usually meant for spraying pesticide around the garden and nothing else. One man had a different idea and turned his sprayer into a homemade flamethrower using nothing but a lighter and some fuel. He figured it would be the perfect tool to clean grease off his garage floor in seconds. The moment he pulled the trigger, a long blast of fire shot out farther than he ever expected. Flames licked up the garage wall as he scrambled backward, dropping the sprayer in pure panic. Neighbors watched smoke curling out of the garage while he stomped out the flames with a beach towel. His garage floor stayed grimy, but at least it did not burn down completely. 12. Go-karts usually come with steering wheels for a very good reason that most people take for granted. One man skipped that detail entirely and welded a shopping cart frame into his own homemade go-kart. He climbed in proudly, with zero steering mechanism installed anywhere on the vehicle. To turn, he simply dragged one foot along the pavement, hoping friction alone would guide him safely. The cart zigzagged wildly down the street, while he leaned his whole body trying to aim it somewhere useful. Neighbors watched a grown man dragging his sneaker like a rudder, just to avoid parked cars. Turns out shopping carts make terrible race cars without a wheel attached. 13. Hot tubs are usually built with proper insulation and materials designed to handle serious heat safely. One dad ignored that completely and built his own version using a kiddie pool and an old car radiator. He hooked everything together, convinced he had just created the ultimate backyard relaxation spot for summer. The moment he fired it up, the radiator overheated far faster than he ever anticipated. Plastic began melting and warping around the edges, filling the yard with a strange burning smell. His kids ran inside, yelling that the pool was literally dissolving in front of them. What started as a relaxing soak ended with a puddle of melted plastic and disappointment. 14. Air conditioners are usually built with sealed refrigerant systems designed by trained engineers for safety. One man decided a cooler packed with dry ice could easily do the same job in his garage. He sealed himself inside a small room, hoping the cold air would circulate perfectly around him. Instead, the dry ice released fumes that quickly filled the tight, unventilated space without him realizing it. Within minutes, he grew dizzy and collapsed onto the floor before anyone noticed something was wrong. A family member found him passed out and quickly dragged him outside into fresh air. His homemade air conditioner taught him a serious lesson about ventilation the hard way. 15. Rockets are usually built by actual scientists, using carefully measured fuel and reinforced materials for safety. One man figured a length of PVC pipe and a can of hairspray could accomplish the same result. He built his so-called rocket launcher right in the middle of his garage without thinking twice about it. The moment he ignited it, the pressure built up faster than the plastic pipe could possibly handle. It exploded upward, blasting a hole clean through the garage ceiling above him. Dust and insulation rained down as he stood frozen, staring at the new skylight he had just created. His hairspray rocket never made it outside, but his roof certainly did. 16. Home gyms usually rely on sturdy steel equipment built to support heavy repeated weights safely. One man decided cinder blocks and a broomstick could easily replace an actual barbell setup. He stacked the blocks proudly, convinced he had just built a budget-friendly bench press station. The moment he lowered the makeshift bar during his first rep, the whole structure gave way instantly. Blocks crashed down around him as the broomstick snapped in half under the sudden pressure. His workout ended in a cloud of concrete dust and a very bruised ego on the garage floor. Turns out broomsticks were never designed to hold serious weight above anyone's chest. 17. Motion sensor lights are usually installed to catch intruders sneaking around a property at night. One man wired his entire garage with sensors, convinced he had built the ultimate home security upgrade. He expected the lights to trigger only for burglars or the occasional raccoon passing through. Instead, local squirrels discovered the sensors and treated them like their own personal light show every single day. Lights flickered on and off constantly throughout the year, driving him completely up the wall with frustration. Neighbors joked his garage looked like a disco every time a squirrel darted across the yard. His high-tech security system became nothing more than a squirrel entertainment center. 18. Pressure washers are usually engineered with controlled nozzles designed to handle serious water pressure safely. One man decided an old fire extinguisher could easily be repurposed into his own homemade version instead. He rigged it together, convinced he had just built a powerful new cleaning tool for his driveway. The moment he activated it, the extinguisher released everything at once, in one violent, uncontrolled burst. A wall of white foam exploded outward, covering him the garage and half the driveway instantly. Neighbors walked by to find what looked like a blizzard had hit one single house on the block. His driveway got cleaned eventually, but only after the foam finally settled down. 19. Drones are usually built with lightweight frames and carefully balanced motors designed for smooth, stable flight. One man figured an old drill motor could easily replace all that expensive drone technology instead. He attached propellers, proudly convinced he had just built his own budget-friendly flying machine. The moment he powered it on, the drone shot upward with far more force than he expected. It spun wildly out of control before crashing directly into his neighbor's satellite dish nearby. The dish shattered, sending pieces scattering across the yard while his drone lay in pieces beside it. His neighbor lost cable that night and gained quite a story to tell. 20. Cement mixers are usually built with reinforced drums designed to handle heavy, wet materials safely. One man decided an old washing machine could easily do the exact same job in his garage. He loaded it with cement, proudly convinced he had just built a clever, budget-friendly mixer. In his excitement, he completely forgot to shut off the water line still connected to the machine. Water poured in non-stop, turning the whole mixture into a thick gray flood across the garage floor. He stood ankle-deep in wet cement, watching his brilliant idea slowly disappear beneath the mess. His washing machine never spun another load of laundry again after that day. 21. Saunas are usually built with proper ventilation and materials rated to handle extreme heat safely. One man decided plastic sheeting and a propane camp stove could easily recreate that same relaxing experience. He sealed himself inside a small tent-like structure, convinced he had built his own backyard spa. The moment the propane stove kicked into high gear, the temperature inside shot up dangerously fast. Plastic began to soften around him, while sweat poured down his face in the thick, trapped heat. He stumbled out gasping for air just before the whole setup nearly cooked him alive completely. His homemade sauna experiment lasted about 4 minutes before he swore it off forever. 22. Snowplows are usually mounted on heavy-duty trucks built to handle serious winter weight and control. One man decided his golf cart could easily handle the same job around his neighborhood instead. He welded a plow blade onto the front, convinced he had just built the ultimate winter machine. The moment snow started falling, he took off proudly, clearing driveways up and down the street. His steering, however, could not handle the added weight, and he began drifting sideways with every turn. He ended up taking out 3 separate mailboxes before finally parking the cart for good that winter. Neighbors joked his golf cart caused more damage than the actual snowstorm did. 23. Firework launchers are usually built with reinforced tubes, designed to handle serious internal pressure safely. One man decided an old mailbox pipe could easily do the same job in his own garage. He packed it, proudly convinced he had just built a budget-friendly launcher for the big show. The moment he lit the fuse, the pressure built up faster than the metal pipe could contain. It blasted sideways instead of upward, punching straight through the garage wall in one violent explosion. Neighbors ran outside, expecting a car crash, and instead found a smoking hole where his wall used to be. His fireworks never made it to the sky, but his garage certainly got some new airflow. 24. Jetpacks are usually built by aerospace engineers using precisely calculated thrust and balance systems for safety. One man decided 2 air mattress pumps strapped to a backpack could easily achieve the same result. He strapped it on, proudly convinced he had just built his own personal flying machine for fun. The moment he switched it on, the uneven thrust sent him spinning wildly out of control instantly. He flipped completely upside down before crashing hard into the soft grass below his feet. Neighbors watched in disbelief as a grown man tumbled through the air like a confused pinwheel. His jetpack dreams ended abruptly the same day they had officially begun. 25. Ice rinks are usually built with proper insulation and refrigeration systems designed to keep water frozen evenly. One man decided a garden hose and a cold January night could easily do the same job. He flooded his entire driveway, proudly convinced he had just built a free backyard skating rink. Instead of freezing evenly, the water spread everywhere, turning his yard into one giant uneven puddle. Overnight temperatures created random icy patches scattered across his driveway and half the surrounding lawn. He woke up to find his car frozen partially into the ground near the garage entrance. His backyard rink never hosted a single skater, but it certainly hosted some chaos. 26. Wood chippers are usually built with reinforced blades and safety guards, engineered for serious industrial use. One man decided a circular saw blade could easily replace all that expensive safety equipment instead. He built his own homemade chipper, proudly convinced he had just created a budget-friendly yard tool. While testing it out, his favorite hat happened to fall dangerously close to the spinning blade. In an instant, the chipper shredded the hat completely before he could even react to grab it. He stood there staring at fabric confetti scattered across his driveway in complete disbelief. His homemade chipper worked perfectly well, just not exactly the way he had planned. 27. Slingshots are usually small handheld tools designed for backyard fun and light, harmless targets. One man decided heavy-duty truck tie-down straps could easily build a much more powerful version instead. He rigged it between 2 posts, proudly convinced he had just built the ultimate backyard launcher. Loading a bowling ball into the pouch, he pulled back with every bit of strength he had. The moment he released it, the ball rocketed forward, smashing straight through his neighbor's garden shed wall. Neighbors ran outside expecting a car accident, and instead found a bowling ball resting inside a shed. His slingshot experiment ended with an apology and a very confused neighbor. 28. Trampolines are usually just bouncy enough on their own, without any extra modifications required. One man decided jumper cables hooked up for a little extra charge could make his even better. He clipped the cables on, proudly convinced he had just invented an electrified bounce upgrade. The moment he touched the metal frame while jumping, a sudden shock ran straight through his body. He yelped loudly and flew backward off the trampoline, landing hard in the grass nearby. Neighbors came running, expecting an emergency, and instead found him lying there twitching and laughing nervously. His extra bouncy trampoline idea turned out to be shockingly bad in more ways than one. 29. Paintball games are usually played with specially designed guns built to fire safely at low impact speeds. One backyard group decided real hunting rifles loaded with paintballs could easily do the same job instead. They set up their homemade arena, proudly convinced they had just built the ultimate weekend activity. The moment the game began, paintballs fired at dangerously high speeds, far beyond normal safety limits. Players scattered in panic as impacts left painful welts far worse than any standard paintball ever could. The game ended abruptly with several bruises and one very serious conversation about equipment choices. Their backyard arena taught everyone a painful lesson about proper gear that day. List 30. Rope swings are usually built with sturdy rope, rated to handle repeated weight and motion safely. One man decided an old garage door chain could easily replace that rope for his own version. He hung it proudly from a tall tree, convinced he had just built the ultimate backyard swing. The moment he leaped on and swung forward, the chain snapped without any warning whatsoever. He went flying through the air before crashing directly into the wooden fence at the edge of his yard. Neighbors heard the crash and rushed over, expecting the worst possible outcome from the noise. His homemade swing gave him quite literally a fence-shaped lesson in rope safety. 31. Go-kart brakes are usually built with reinforced pads, engineered to handle serious friction and heat safely. One man decided an old rubber shoe sole could easily do the same job on his homemade kart. He bolted it on, proudly convinced he had just built a clever budget-friendly braking system. The moment he approached his very first sharp turn, he slammed down hard, expecting a smooth stop. Instead, the sole wore straight through within seconds, sending him sliding uncontrollably across the pavement. He skidded to a stop only after crashing sideways into a pile of yard clippings nearby. His homemade brake lasted exactly one turn before giving up completely on him. 32. Family cars are usually built with reinforced frames designed to keep every passenger balanced and safe. One man decided a wheelbarrow frame welded onto a motorcycle could easily serve the same purpose instead. He proudly loaded his family in, convinced he had just built the ultimate budget-friendly vehicle. The moment he approached his very first red light, he leaned slightly while slowing the machine down. The unstable frame tipped sideways, instantly sending everyone tumbling gently onto the pavement below. Neighbors rushed over expecting a serious accident, and instead found a family laughing on the ground. His homemade family car never made it past the very first intersection that day. 33. Wind turbines are usually built with reinforced blades, engineered to spin safely under heavy wind pressure. One man decided an old box fan could easily generate the same clean energy for his home instead. He mounted it proudly on his roof, convinced he had just built a budget-friendly power source. The moment strong wind hit the blades, they spun far faster than the motor was ever designed for. Within seconds, a blade snapped loose and shattered straight through his neighbor's nearby window completely. Neighbors rushed outside expecting a storm had caused the damage and instead found spinning fan parts. His homemade turbine generated plenty of chaos, but sadly, zero actual electricity. 34. Pool slides are usually built with smooth reinforced plastic, engineered for safe controlled sliding speeds. One dad decided plywood covered in dish soap could easily create the same fun backyard experience instead. He built it proudly convinced he had just constructed the ultimate summer attraction for his kids. The moment his son climbed on and pushed off the soap, made the surface impossibly slick. Instantly, he shot down the slide at incredible speed, launching completely over the fence into the neighbor's yard. Neighbors looked up just in time to see a child sailing gracefully over their fence line. His homemade slide worked a little too well for everyone's comfort that day. 35. Potato cannons are usually built with reinforced pipes, engineered to handle controlled bursts of pressure safely. One man decided an air compressor connected to his homemade cannon could easily launch things even farther instead. He loaded it proudly in his driveway, convinced he had just built the ultimate backyard toy. The moment he fired his very first shot, the pressure proved far stronger than he ever expected. The potato blasted straight through his own truck door, leaving a perfectly round hole behind it. Neighbors rushed over, expecting a gunshot, and instead found a man staring blankly at his own vehicle. His homemade cannon technically worked, but sadly, at his own truck's expense. 36. Tattoos are usually applied by trained professionals, using sterile needles and carefully controlled precise equipment. One man decided a toothbrush motor and sewing needle could easily achieve the same result at home instead. He built his own makeshift tattoo gun, proudly convinced he had just saved himself $100. The moment he began the design, his skin reacted almost instantly to the unsterilized needle. Redness and swelling spread quickly, leaving him rushing to a doctor within just a few hours. His doctor explained the infection could have been avoided with basic sterilization equipment from any store. His budget tattoo turned into an expensive lesson about cutting corners on hygiene. 37. Windshields are usually defrosted using built-in vehicle defrost systems designed specifically for glass and interior safety. One man decided a household hairdryer could easily speed up that process on a cold morning instead. He aimed it proudly at his windshield, convinced he had just found a clever time-saving trick. The moment the heat lingered too long near the dashboard, the plastic trim began to visibly warp and melt. He pulled the dryer back just in time to see permanent damage already forming near the vents. His quick morning shortcut ended up costing him a full dashboard repair appointment later that week. Turns out patience is cheaper than a hairdryer shortcut. 38. Cable cars are usually built with reinforced pulleys, engineered to handle repeated weight and constant motion safely. One backyard mechanic decided old roller skate wheels could easily replace that expensive pulley system instead. He rigged his own version, proudly convinced he had just built a fun new way to travel his yard. The moment he climbed aboard and pushed off the wheels, jammed suddenly without any warning at all. He found himself stranded 20 feet up a tree, with no way to climb down safely. Neighbors heard him yelling, and assumed at first he was just calling out to birds nearby. His homemade cable car left him stuck, literally out on a limb that day. 39. Smart garage doors are usually installed by professionals using tested wiring and reliable digital components for safety. One backyard mechanic decided a doorbell cam and some fishing line could easily create the same smart upgrade instead. He rigged it, proudly convinced he had just built a clever high-tech entry system for his home. The moment he tested it, the fishing line tangled and jammed the door completely shut without warning. He found himself locked out of his own garage for 2 entire days straight afterward. Neighbors offered tools and advice while he struggled repeatedly to free the stubborn, tangled mechanism. His smart garage door turned out to be smarter than he ever expected. 40. Pottery kilns are usually built with reinforced insulation, engineered to handle extremely high controlled temperatures safely. One man decided an old refrigerator could easily be converted into the same kind of heating chamber instead. He fired it up, proudly convinced he had just built a clever budget-friendly pottery studio. The moment the temperature climbed higher than expected, nearby garden tools resting close by began to visibly melt. Metal handles warped and dripped onto the floor, while he scrambled to shut the whole thing down. Neighbors noticed the strange smell and rushed over expecting some kind of serious garage emergency happening. His homemade kiln proved surprisingly effective, just not for pottery at all. 41. Fog machines are usually built with specialized heating elements engineered to safely vaporize fog fluid for effects. One man decided dry ice and an old coffee maker could easily recreate that same spooky effect instead. He rigged it proudly in his living room, convinced he had just built the ultimate party machine. The moment he switched it on, thick fog poured out far faster than he ever expected. Every smoke alarm in the house triggered at once, creating a deafening chorus throughout the entire home. Neighbors saw fog rolling out the windows and assumed something serious was happening inside. His homemade fog machine worked perfectly well, just a little too enthusiastically for one house. 42. Cruisers are usually built with reinforced seating, engineered to handle constant movement and sudden weight shifts safely. One dad decided an old bar stool welded onto a hand truck could easily serve the same purpose instead. He climbed aboard, proudly convinced he had just built the ultimate backyard cruiser for casual rides. The moment he picked up speed, rolling down his driveway, the stool suddenly snapped clean off its base. He tumbled backward, landing hard on the pavement while the hand truck rolled off without him completely. Neighbors rushed over expecting a serious accident and instead found him laughing on the ground nearby. His homemade cruiser proved that bar stools were never built for wheels. 43. Rope ladders are usually built with reinforced rungs engineered to handle repeated weight and constant tension safely. One man decided several dog leashes tied together could easily replace that reinforced rope instead. He hung his version, proudly convinced he had just built a clever budget-friendly climbing tool. The moment he placed his full weight on the very first rung, the leashes gave way instantly. He dropped straight down, landing hard in a pile of leaves gathered near the base. Neighbors heard the crash and rushed over, expecting some kind of serious backyard emergency happening. His homemade rope ladder taught him that leashes were never meant for climbing. 44. Car dryers usually rely on proper airflow systems, engineered specifically to remove water without causing any damage. One man decided a shop vac running in reverse could easily achieve that same drying effect instead. He aimed it proudly at his car, convinced he had just found a clever time-saving trick. The moment the powerful reverse airflow hit the side mirror, it blew completely off in one instant. He stood there, holding the vacuum hose, staring at the mirror, now resting somewhere in the grass. Neighbors walked by just in time to see him chasing his own mirror across the yard. His homemade drying method proved a little too powerful for delicate car parts. 45. Solar ovens are usually built with reflective materials, engineered to safely concentrate sunlight for gentle, even cooking. One man decided a shoebox and scattered mirror shards could easily achieve that same cooking effect instead. He set it up proudly in his backyard, convinced he had just built a clever, eco-friendly lunch station. The moment sunlight hit the mirrors at the wrong angle, the cardboard began smoking almost immediately afterward. Flames quickly spread across the box, turning his planned lunch into an unexpected small backyard fire. Neighbors rushed over with a hose, expecting a serious emergency, and instead found a ruined sandwich. His homemade solar oven cooked absolutely nothing except his own cardboard box. 46. Generators are usually built with regulated components engineered to safely convert motion into stable, usable electricity. One man decided a stationary bike could easily be converted into his own homemade version instead. He pedaled, proudly convinced he had just built a clever, eco-friendly charging station for his phone. The moment he pedaled harder, trying to speed up the charge, a sudden power surge blew a fuse instantly. Lights flickered throughout his garage while his phone remained completely uncharged despite all his effort. Neighbors heard the pop and rushed over, expecting some kind of serious electrical emergency happening. His homemade generator provided plenty of exercise, but sadly, zero actual electricity. 47. Trampolines are usually built with reinforced springs engineered to handle repeated bouncing without any sudden failure. One man decided old mattress bed springs could easily replace those reinforced trampoline springs instead. He assembled it, proudly convinced he had just built a clever, budget-friendly backyard trampoline. The moment he jumped for the very first time, the mismatched springs launched him with unexpected extra force. He shot upward far higher than planned, crashing directly into the spinning ceiling fan above him. Neighbors heard the commotion and rushed over, expecting some kind of serious backyard accident happening. His homemade trampoline definitely worked just a little too well for indoor ceilings. 48. Off-road wagons are usually built with reinforced frames, engineered to handle rough terrain and heavy, uneven loads. One man decided attaching ATV tires to a garden wagon could easily create the same rugged upgrade instead. He loaded it, proudly convinced he had just built the ultimate backyard off-road vehicle. The moment he drove it through a muddy patch near the yard, the wagon sank almost immediately. Wheels spun uselessly while mud splattered everywhere, covering him from head to toe completely. Neighbors walked by just in time to see him pushing a wagon stuck axle-deep in mud. His homemade off-roader proved better at collecting mud than actually driving through it. 49. Car alarms are usually built with sensors, engineered to detect actual break-ins rather than random harmless movement. One man decided an old smoke detector could easily be repurposed into his own homemade car alarm instead. He installed it, proudly convinced he had just built a clever, budget-friendly security system. The moment his cat wandered past the driveway, the sensor triggered loudly without any real threat present. This happened repeatedly throughout the day, turning his quiet street into a constant blaring alarm zone. Neighbors eventually complained, realizing the culprit was simply a curious cat walking innocently past. His homemade alarm protected his car, mostly from feline foot traffic. 50. Weather vanes are usually built with reinforced metal designed to spin smoothly under normal wind conditions safely. One dad decided an old umbrella and bike wheel could easily create the same rooftop decoration instead. He mounted it, proudly convinced he had just built a clever, budget-friendly weather indicator for his roof. The moment a strong storm rolled through, the loosely built vane began spinning wildly out of control instantly. It broke free entirely and sailed across the yard, knocking straight into the neighbor's grill below. Neighbors rushed outside expecting storm damage, and instead found an umbrella tangled in their barbecue. His homemade weather vane accurately predicted nothing except neighborhood chaos that night. 51. Car lifts are usually built with reinforced hydraulic systems engineered to safely support heavy vehicle weight during repairs. One man decided ratchet straps tied to a tree branch could easily replace that expensive hydraulic system instead. He rigged it, proudly convinced he had just built a clever, budget-friendly repair station in his yard. The moment he lifted his car halfway through the repair, the branch groaned under the sudden strain. It snapped completely, sending the vehicle crashing back down before he could finish the job. Neighbors rushed over, expecting a serious accident, and instead found him staring blankly at his fallen car. His homemade lift proved that trees were never meant to hold vehicles. And there you have it, 51 grown adults who looked at a perfectly safe garage and thought, I can make this worse. From jet engine lawnmowers, to flaming bug sprayers, to a car lift held together by a tree branch and pure hope, proving once and for all that duct tape confidence is the most dangerous fuel known to mankind. If your jaw is still on the floor somewhere near that melted dashboard and that exploding mailbox rocket, Smash that like button before your neighbor tries building a Tesla coil out of your microwave. Hit subscribe so you never miss the next batch of humans defying both physics and common sense. And drop a comment telling me which invention made you yell out loud the hardest, because I need to know if it was the flying office chair hovercraft or the tattoo gun made from a toothbrush. This has been Dumb Historical Inventions, where the garage door always closes just a little too late. So buckle up because the next video is already looking even dumber than this one.